Synchronize watches. Good evening and welcome to the April 14th meeting of the Livermore City Council. I call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Barrientos. Councilmember Dunbar is excused absent. Councilmember Wong. Here. Vice Mayor Branning.
Here.
Mayor Marchand.
Here. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Question for the city attorney. Was there any action that was reportable taken that was in closed session?
Mr. Mayor, this is your city attorney, Jason Alcala. No, the city council did not take any reportable action in closed session. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the Commission for the Arts. And by the way, there was a great Livermore Art Association show at the Bothwell Center over the weekend. But we have a report, an update from the Commission Chair, Lawrence Milder. There somewhere.
There we go. Okay. Wait for us to get our slides up here. Dear councilors, permit me a few moments of your time to hear this presentation I've prepared for you in rhyme. These dedicated volunteers, your Commission for the Arts, have spent the past year laboring, as indicated in these charts. Our mandate is quite laudable: to review and recommend the public art that graces every city, street, and bend. We're following a 5-year plan called Creative Livermore to make the arts accessible, diverse, and just plain more. We've given out awards and grants for projects great and small, especially to students. See what's on the library wall. From literary arts to celebrations, multicultural, to the show just at the Bothwell, both two-dimensional and sculptural. Among our most important tasks is what the public sees when developers submit their plans or pay their in lieu fees, from which the city funds those lovely murals on garages, and boxes for utilities become a canvas for montages. We're so, go back one there. We're so very proud of Livermore's own poet laureate for centering the spoken word, cause rhyme is where it's at. This year, support for all our work has moved to a new location. The library is now the home for our deliberation. With performance and with hands-on art that's fun and hip and witty, the library brings arts events to every corner of the city. We offer thanks to Livermore, the City Council, and its members for your commitment to public art and all the riches it engenders. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, it can be that fast. Hang on a second. So where, without being obvious, where is the sculpture of the blacksmith? Is that at Blacksmith Square?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, think a minute.
Yeah, I had to think for a moment, but that is where it is. Obviously not on the North Livermore, not facing North Livermore Street.
So has that been installed?
I don't think it's been installed.
Oh, okay.
I think
All
it's going in in next to one of the upcoming buildings,
Okay. all
around
right.
the circle. It's
'Cause
going
it-
in
it-
around the circle.
It had the brick there and I thought, well, that is the Blacksmith Square, but, and that he is a blacksmith. So, but it's a very cool statue.
It
I
is
mean,
cool
that's-
statue. It is European in origin.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
very,
Nice
we won't tell
donation.
anybody else
A
that.
nice donation to the city.
Yeah, we won't tell anybody that, but, that's very cool. And I love the rabbit and the cat. That's very cool as well. So very good. Well, thank you very much. And, very proud of what the Commission for the Arts is doing. As I said, it's a great show this weekend.
Yes, the art show at the Bothwell was absolutely fabulous. Incredible artists who come and display their work here. We're really very fortunate.
And the first weekend of May, there's going to be an open studios. There's,
Also
I
a great
believe,
show.
17 studios of local artists. They're
Yeah.
going to open up their studios to the community.
Both at the Bothwell and around the city.
Yeah,
So you
at their
can-
studios,
you
and in
could
some
go-
cases, their homes.
Yeah, you can go on a little tour of the artists in their own, many of them in their own homes. That's right.
Yeah, and it's a very cool thing. So a lot of great stuff. Thank you for supporting all of that.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Okay, great. Keep up the great work. Okay, with that, I've got a proclamation declaring April as Fair Housing Month in Livermore. I believe Tanya Corona is here. Okay, there you are. Good. The housing coordinator for Eden Council for Hope and Opportunity, Echo Housing. So with that, proclamation of the City of Livermore proclaiming April 2025 Fair Housing Month. Whereas fair housing is a key element of social justice and all individuals benefit from access to safe, decent, and affordable housing free from discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status as protected under the Fair Housing Act. And whereas the Eden Council for Hope and Opportunity has assisted more than 1,230 households in the last 5 years, ensuring residents of Livermore have the knowledge and resources to secure stable housing and contribute to a thriving, inclusive community. And whereas the City of Livermore is committed to advancing fair housing practices, promoting inclusive communities, and ensuring that all residents, regardless of background, have access to housing opportunities that support their well-being and stability. And whereas through strong partnerships with nonprofit and private sector developers in the last 30 years, Livermore has created over 1,200 high-quality, well-maintained, affordable rental and ownership units, expanding access to housing for families, seniors, individuals with disabilities, and historically underserved communities. And whereas the City of Council actively supports initiatives that advance fair housing through education, enforcement, and advocacy, including its collaboration with Tri-Valley Cities and the Eden Council for Hope and Opportunity to provide fair housing advocacy, homeownership education, financial literacy, and foreclosure prevention services. Now therefore, the City Council of Livermore hereby proclaims April 2025 as Fair Housing Month in the City of Livermore and urges all residents to recognize the importance of fair and equal access to housing, support efforts to eliminate discrimination, and celebrate the positive impact of inclusive housing policies in our community.
and all of its residents in allowing us to continue to do our work in fair housing. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our open forum. The city clerk will explain how to participate in the open forum.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council's agenda provides opportunities for the public to participate in the meeting by addressing the City Council in the following ways. For non-agendized items, the public has the opportunity during open forum to address the city council on any item of interest that is within the city council's subject matter jurisdiction. For agendized items, the public can address the city council on each item of business it considers when the mayor opens public comment and should be focused on that particular item. Please note, a speaker is not required to answer any questions from the city council, and the city council is not required to answer questions from the public. However, the mayor has the discretion to ask staff to address the speaker's comments when council members believe it is relevant to a particular business item. When participating in tonight's meeting, one comment may be given per person per item. For consent calendar items, one comment may be given for all items on the consent calendar. If consent calendar items are pulled for discussion by the city council, a speaker will be allowed one comment for each item pulled for discussion and a separate comment for the remaining consent calendar. To provide comment, please fill out and turn in a speaker card found at the entrance of the city council chambers. Speakers will be announced in the order received. Once public comment opens, each participant's name will be announced and their 3 minutes will begin once at the lectern. The mayor will announce the conclusion of public comment period after comments have been voiced into the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, do we have any one that wishes to speak?
Yes, sir, we do. The first speaker is Greg Scott, followed by Michael Blau, followed by Trish Monroe.
Good evening. I'm Greg Scott. Many thanks to the Islamic Center of Livermore for donating prepared meals to me so that I, in turn, can help distribute those meals through a volunteer network to the homeless, impoverished housed, elderly, and invalid shut-ins in Livermore, Eastern Alameda County, and Eastern Contra Costa County, all the way to Antioch. Even a few meals can go a long way with the hungry. The social situation of the vulnerable only appears to be deteriorating by numbers and in quality of life. We have families living in automobiles in Livermore and the Livermore sphere of influence where one or both adults may be working full-time jobs. Overall, it's a dreadful humanitarian situation for the vulnerable. The social safety net complex is broken. Yes, I am angry. I am angry for what I witnessed and what I have witnessed. Many thanks also to Councilman Barrientos, my District 2 council member, for his courageous lone dissenting vote last November on the Garaventa Hills project. We in Livermore are ill-prepared, both in the existing infrastructure and in future infrastructure for the next historic Category 1 atmospheric river that is coming due statistically in the standard deviation of mean occurrence. In Leland Heights, there are no storm drains that I have seen for runoff flows from Portola Avenue all the way down to Lee to continue down Ladd to storm drains on Junction Avenue. The lower avenue area would be inundated in a historic Category 1 atmosphere along with its Livermore School District properties on Ladd. We have also not adequately planned for what a historic Category 1 atmospheric river effects would be on the emergency egress and access routes for the Garaventa Hills project. As a result of Councilman Barrientos' lone dissenting vote, 3 complaints were filed last December with the Fair Political Practices Commission, FPPC, based on an asserted conflict of interest because Councilman Barrientos' residence proximity to the Garaventa Hills project. There are 2 suppositions here. One is that Councilman Barrientos unfairly intended and acted on its potential to swing a possible 3-2 vote to avert economic loss or gain economically on his residence. The other is that he had no economic intent or action to influence his personal finances in regard to the location of his residence in proximity to the Garaventa Hills project and is guilty of conflict of interest anyway because of the location of his residence. This second supposition denies us democratic representation in District 2 merely by location of Councilman Barrientos' residence, unless perhaps there are aesthetic considerations such as those based on mathematical Gaussian distributions of traffic patterns based on traffic projections in the Garaventa Hills project traffic plan. There is no evidence of intent or action on these intangible considerations. A reminder here, the vote was 4-1, which does not absolve Councilman Barrientos of intent and action. However, there is no evidence of Councilman Barrientos having intent and action of influencing his economic interests. Never mind that, Councilman Barrientos' antagonist smear his good character anyway. There was no rational way to predict previous to that Livermore City Council vote that an economic loss or an economic gain would occur to Councilman Barrientos' residence valuation and therefore to his finances.
The next speaker is Michael Blau, followed by Trish Monroe, followed by Lanning Thompson.
Good evening. I am the general partner in Vasco Plaza. It's a shopping center in North Livermore. And I came to the council a little over 2 months ago, and I had basically one question to ask, and that is, I wanted an explanation as to how come over the last 10 years, our garbage rates have doubled, have gone up 100%, while in the same time period, the consumer price index has gone up 32%. The vice mayor asked staff to sit down with me and give me an explanation, and that was not done. So I'm back here to ask that question again, and to clarify, there's three things I want. I would like an explanation of how that happened. Number two, I would want a justification of the 68%, which is above, if you take 100% versus 32%, I'd like to have that justified of why that is necessary. And if that cannot be justified, I'd like to know what you're going to do about it. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, if staff could contact Mr. Blau.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Trish Monroe, followed by Lanning Thompson.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and as ever, the honorable staff. Sorry, I know it's out of order, but I love you guys. I am here to speak about the FPPC investigation and the role of the city in that. And the reason for that is that we are in a time nationally where the rule of law is being flouted. It is being flouted every day. It is being flouted seriously at every level of government. Now, there's maybe not a lot that we can do at the city level, but what we can do is make sure that our city is very carefully following those rules, that we, in fact, understand what the rule of law is. And part of that involves understanding what the role of being a council member is. Part of that, that is the job of the FPPC, is when those rules are violated or appear to be violated, that they investigate, not because the person is right, not because the person is wrong, but because holding the rule of law is what makes us a civil society. What I would ask of the city, though, is that our rules and procedures hold all council members accountable, that our norms and values assert the necessity for following the rule of law, and that if that rule of law is adjudged by an outside investigator not to have been followed, that we have a procedure for censuring, for finding some way for us to have action, because without a rule of law, we do not have a civil society. So I'm asking you, please, take a look at the rules and procedures. Take a look at the norms and values. Make sure those are done publicly, because we as a city need to, as a community, be united on this. This is really important. You council members don't just represent a district. You represent all of us first. Your job is to represent us all, not the people who voted for you, not your district, but all of us. And I would like to see you make that clear to all of us in public statements. Thank you.
The next speaker is Lanning Thompson.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and staff. As part of April Fair Housing Month, and as a past president of Interfaith Housing, I'm here to thank the council and the city staff for all you have done over the last 8 years to help Interfaith Housing get to where we are today, ready to start construction on the first building of what is to be 140 apartments for lower income seniors at the end of Pacific Avenue. I'd like to apologize for not expressing my appreciation at the March 24th council meeting when you authorized the execution of loan and regulatory agreements, the ground lease, and other funding documents for what is currently known as the Pack Avenue project. I was holding my breath that night as Interfaith Housing and its developer partner, Satellite Affordable Housing, were waiting to close on the 7 or so streams of funding from federal, state, and county sources and the city of Livermore, as well as our tax credit investor, National Equity Fund, and construction lender, First Citizens Bank. After dozens of legal agreements and documents flew through the Ethernet like letters in a Harry Potter movie, we finally closed on everything on Friday, April 4th. Hooray. To start, we thank Mayor Marchand and former Mayor Bob Warner for meeting with board members of IFH and the Livermore Stockman's Rodeo Association in July 2017. Bob came up with the idea for the Stockman's Park land swap, which enabled the property to be used for much needed housing. We also thank the Stockman for their gracious cooperation. Other thanks go to housing manager Fran Reisner Earl, who has ably shepherded our project over the years, as well as members of the City Planning Department and Planning Commission. Then there's the Livermore Housing Authority, which granted us 5 project-based Section 8 vouchers that will help with cash flow once the building is completed and leased out. Very soon, you'll start seeing construction equipment on the lot next to the skate park. And if all goes well, Phase 1 of the Pack Avenue project will have a new name and be ready for occupancy in about 2 years. So get your hard hats and golden shovels ready. You're all invited to our groundbreaking ceremonies, which will take place sometime in my time ran out. Thank you.
That concludes open forum.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period, move on to the consent calendar. Do we have any council member that wishes to pull anything on consent? Okay, do we have any public comments on consent?
No public comments been received.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period for consent. I do have a couple of comments of my own, however. There has been a fair amount of chatter on social media. I know it's a vice that I have, but there's been a letter that went out about the sewer rates. And so we've just, on the consent calendar, and so we're closing out on $23 million of construction that's being done on the wastewater treatment plant. And this is keeping up. This is replacing things that have worn out. So everybody's using this. Everybody's benefiting from this. And that's why there's a general rate increase, is to replace the equipment that has reached the end of its life, and also meeting some of the new environmental standards that we have to meet. So these are all things that we're all using. And that's why we're all paying for it, is we don't want to end up in a place where we haven't managed our assets like some of our neighboring communities, and they're looking at bonds and tax increases, and we're not doing that, because we've been, ever since 2015, we've been properly managing our assets. 5.4 is the road repair on Railroad Avenue. Those are your Measure BB dollars at work. You may remember Measure BB passed a few years back. Those are your tax dollars at work. So we're making that happen. And with that, those the comments that I have. Right, very good. With that, there's no questions or comments. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Branning,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Barrientos. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to public hearing, hearing to receive and consider protests regarding weed abatement. We have Deputy Chief Fire Marshal Ryan Rucker. And didn't we just do this? It seems like we did this not that long ago. But the weeds just keep coming back, don't they?
Yeah, you again. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. I'm going to go ahead and start. On March 10th, 2025, the City Council adopted Resolution Number 2025-032, the Fire Hazard Abatement Program, which advises parcel owners of the need to abate hazardous debris and vegetation. Abatement standards have been mailed to the owners of record, current occupants, or posted conspicuously on the properties in cases where a mailing address was insufficient. Property owners can avoid hazardous abatement program enforcement by completing abatement work in accordance with guidelines or protest the need to abate hazards at this public hearing. Abatements not performed by May 31st will be completed by the city contractor. The costs incurred for nuisance abatements and any assessments will be confirmed by the council at a future meeting. Staff recommends that the city council consider any and all protests, and if council finds it appropriate, adopt a resolution overruling protests and direct staff to proceed with necessary weed abatement on all parcels as required. Staff is available for questions.
Yes, sir, we do. Alan Marling?
Mayor and council members, I've seen weed reduction go two ways. One with goats grazing shrubs, which is joyful and adorable, and two with giant mowers making a racket and leaving behind a mess. Goats are by far the preferable option. Second, a more specific concern is with the trees and shrubs surrounding the Quarry Lake near Vineyard and Isabel. One adjacent street, Old Oak Road, is true to name in that there is much that could be a fire hazard there. A southerly wind could blow any sparks from flaming trees onto the surrounding homes.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public comment period and bring it back to the council. Any questions or comments from the council? I'll entertain a motion. Oh, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, just a quick question for staff. Alan brought up an interesting concern about fire abatement outside of this program. And so I'm wondering if it's possible for us, I'll bring it back up in matters initiated, but do we have data about the fire abatement programs that are going throughout the rest of the city that we could look at?
Honorable Mayor Marchand, members of the City Council, this is your City Manager, Mariana Birch. We can certainly coordinate with other entities, larger entities in the city on their fire abatement efforts and provide information to you through critical projects.
Okay, thank you. And I've been hearing from some of the conferences I'm going to that the rules around that are changing actually fairly rapidly right now. So during matters initiated, I'll bring this back up for report back to the council.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you.
To make a motion?
And while I'm here, I'll make a motion to.
Motion is made by Vice Mayor Branning. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? It passed unanimously. Okay, moving on to the item of the evening, matters of consideration, 7.1. It's an update on the airport land use and development study. We have Andy Ross, our principal planner. And Brandon Cardwell, our Director of Economic Development and Innovation.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. So your staff is excited to be here this evening to provide an update on the airport land use and development study and walk through what our proposed next steps are. Just as a reminder, staff conducted this land use study to identify potential development approach that responds to the needs of the city and the airport and the surrounding community and serve as a guide to implement the airport leasing and development policy. That policy identifies procedures and procedures for identifying and evaluating proposals, but does not identify what land is available or advisable for development, doesn't take into consideration site conditions, use constraints, or other community needs, which this study does. So it's meant to complement that policy. So as we walk through this evening, we'll talk about the background and context in the study in the airport. I share with the council our steps for community engagement and what we heard, and then look at the different undeveloped sites at the airport, what their potentials are, and what opportunities may be there for future development. Then we'll summarize the key findings of the technical study and walk through staff's planned next steps. So this is a map of the Livermore Airport. If you can see my cursor, this is I-580 right here. Sorry, it's moving so choppily. And then Isabel Avenue is further to the east. And then along the southern boundary is Jack London Boulevard. So everything in the purple outline is airport land. It's quite expansive. It's not just the developed portions of the airport. And then all the green colored polygons are what we've identified as undeveloped. So the airport is designated by the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, as a general aviation reliever airport. So it does not provide passenger service on commercial airlines. It's meant to function as part of the system in the region and handle smaller aircraft. And so those aircraft do not take up space in the larger commercial airports. The colored polygons I just showed earlier represent 14 undeveloped sites. They occupy a total of 165 acres. And the airport is obligated by the FAA, meaning that FAA funds, grant funds were used to acquire and assemble the parcels that now make up the Livermore Airport. So uses are limited to airport functions unless otherwise approved by the FAA, and that's not unheard of. There's an FAA process to approve non-airport land uses. We'll go through. It just requires certain justification, including the airport demand and forecasting. There's many layers of regulation concerning airports, and we'll start at the top. The FAA identifies 4 different categories for land use. First one is aeronautical. That's the highest priority for airport land. And it is meant to directly support the operation of aircraft. So you can think of runways and taxiways, aprons, hangars. The next tier would be airport purpose. So this is related to aeronautical uses, but it's not directly related to the operation of aircraft. So it's terminal buildings or manufacturing and training facilities. Next is a category of mixed use. And so this combines aeronautical uses and non-aeronautical uses in a single site or single or building, and can include things like cargo, offices, or other non-aeronautical purposes. And then lastly, there's a category of just non-aeronautical. So it's has nothing to do with the operation of aircraft operations. And you'll see this typically at large airports with commercial development, shopping centers, hotels, things of that nature. So as I mentioned, FAA prioritizes aeronautical uses and airport purpose uses. FAA approval is required if an airport wanted to pursue into the other use categories, but that approval requires justification. Often that justification comes in the form of forecast demonstrating that there are sufficient land and facilities to meet the current and future demands for aeronautical uses at the airport. And usually you look out at about 25 to 30 years. This is an airport. And so as we mentioned, it was funded through the FAA. It has to operate as an airport. If it did not, then the city may be required to repay upwards of $20 million in grant funding. So moving on to the next category of policy frameworks and plans, in addition to the FAA requirements, there's a lot of local airport plans and regulations that influence what happens at the airport. So the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan is a regional document. It's a county document that encourages compatibility between airports and the various land uses that surround them. The Livermore General Plan has policy goals to maintain safety, minimize noise impacts, and ensure safe airspace around the airport. The Livermore Development Code actually identifies a zoning district for the airport. And like all zoning districts, identifies permitted uses and appropriate development standards. And so again, like other zoning districts, development would have to comply with those uses and standards and go through a normal entitlement process. Livermore Resolution 2010-58 is a policy document that authorizes airport development in response to demand for aviation services or hangars, or in support of the local community, and it's subject to the recommendations of the Livermore Airport Commission. Then there's the airport layout plan. That's a blueprint, so to speak, of the airport. It identifies and illustrates where all the different facilities and infrastructure are going to be located at the Livermore Airport. And then I've already mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but the airport development policy is the process and the procedures by which the city evaluates, approves, or rejects proposals for development or leasing at the airport. So all of these are subject to the regular routine, or any development at the airport rather is subject to routine and regular regulatory compliance. So it would have to, any development proposed would have to adhere to the development policy, the layout plan, Resolution 2010, the zoning code, et cetera, also have to comply with state and federal laws in terms of CEQA and environmental review. So moving on from background and context, the project team did engage with the community. We conducted a variety of community engagement through a variety of formats and channels. Firstly, we hosted focus groups. Our consultant team did that without staff to allow for people to be interviewed by our consultants. 18 members of stakeholders participated in that. The information gathered was kept anonymous, so we knew who they met with. We just don't know what they said for obvious reasons, and that information was grouped into themes. Beyond the targeted focus groups that made up of community organizations, environmental organizations, and airport user groups, we also hosted 2 open houses for the community overall. About 91 people attended the open houses. At those events, the community was able to meet with staff and discuss issues, ask questions, also engage in some activities expressing concerns or what they would like to see at the Livermore Airport. And then lastly, we provided an online survey for those who could not make the open houses, left that up for about a month, got 850 responses. Should note that participants were not limited to attend only one of the channels. So some members may have participated in 1 or all 3 or 2 of the events. So some of the key themes we heard were around growth and development, mix of uses is desired, and additional aviation facilities. What we heard is a want for responsible managed airport growth, addressing demand for new hangars in accordance with Reso 2010, and then exploring feasibility of non-aeronautical uses that could support the airport. In terms of sustainability and innovation, there was a desire to explore renewable energy generation, look at aviation research and development, and also explore new technologies, emerging technologies like advanced air mobilities or electric vertical takeoff and landing, or eVTOLs, as you'll hear us say this evening. In terms of community engagement, there is a desire for continued community engagement and interface with the airport so the community understands what's happening at the airport, and likewise a desire to build positive and foster positive public interactions at the airport. And then lastly, there were concerns expressed with the management of aircraft and operations in terms of noise reporting and pilot education, and that there was a desire to limit the future development at the airport to address some of these concerns. So based on the regulatory frameworks and what we heard, we looked at the undeveloped sites at the airport, and the study broke these sites into 3 kind of main categories. The first is no development. Second is allowable uses. What can you do under the current regulatory framework. And then the third is conditional uses. If you were to get FAA approval, what would make sense on some of these sites? And so just looking at the different colors, the sites that are identified or colored as this red brownish color are recommended for no development. And partly because of their locations and their site characteristics, they're functioning as open space now. They also function for stormwater management and flood control. So development in those locations didn't seem to be appropriate. The colored polygons in yellow are all suitable for allowable uses under the FAA framework today. So things like hangars or aviation businesses, aircraft maintenance, things of that nature. All of the sites in yellow, with the exception of sites 4 and 6, could also be used for certain conditional uses. So some of the mixed use or non-aeronautical uses if the proper FAA approvals were granted. And then lastly, there is an outlier, the blue polygon identified as number 1. That is part of airport land, but it's completely disconnected from airport now and has already gone through a process where aeronautical uses would be allowed under the FAA. So the technical study that we just walked through, again, was conducted to identify a potential development approach, be responsive to the needs of the city and the airport, and look at what would be advisable and allowable under today's conditions, and came up with some key findings that there is a desire for a range of uses, aviation, innovation, and industrial uses at the airport, and that there is also demand for airplane storage to support operations and reduce potential impacts to the community. And lastly, that there would be a need to identify current and long-term airport demands in order to facilitate other uses in compliance with FAA requirements. So with that information, staff is planning to pursue projects that will improve operational efficiency, leverage the airport as a community asset, and generate economic vitality. And we've broken that into 4 parts as shown on the screen. So first would be to, sorry, not first, we're doing these kind of all at once. So develop an approach to move forward with hangar development. So look at the available land, conduct feasibility and fiscal assessments to see what the appropriate approach for moving forward with hangar development is. Explore potential public safety complex to improve local and regional emergency response. That involves coordination with our agency partners to see if there's any synergies or a capacity to share or co-locate at the Livermore Airport. Pursue an aviation innovation center to foster new technologies in aviation and other related sectors. This is a concept of an incubator and bringing in new companies into the airport. And then lastly, explore eVTOL technologies or other advanced aviation technologies to help facilitate advancement in both sustainable transportation and improved mobility. And this is, requires us to look at kind of the layout of the current airport, what the needs of these new technologies are, because they are emerging, and come up with a strategy. So the Airport Commission held a meeting on March 19th, and staff presented this study to them. And overall, Commission accepted the report, agreed with the conclusions that were drawn, and supported staff's proposed next steps. The Commission did recommend, however, using more broader language rather than terms like eVTOLs, which are kind of the terms of the day, that these technologies are changing quickly, and so not get too fixated on any one term. Also recommended that staff prepare frequently asked questions in response to public comment received, which staff has done, and it is on the project website now. And then there was discussion about the Commission's role in all this, and the Commission's role is advisory to council, so they will review specific development projects when ready in accordance with the airport development policies and make recommendations to Planning Commission and City Council. Also at the Airport Commission, about 15 members of the public provided comments and asked questions, and those comments were wide-ranging. So there was support for the study and the four-part development strategy. There was interest in new aviation technologies, training programs, and increased public safety. But there was also, as we mentioned earlier, as part of the community engagement, we did continue to hear concerns about noise and safety, air quality, but also questions about eVTOL technology, how it would work, who would it serve. There was a desire for a master plan to do a comprehensive look at the airport and determine feasibility of non-aeronautical uses at the airport. And then there was requests for more details about hangar development, sizes, locations, things like that, as well as additional details about the Innovation Center. So pursuant to the prior City Council direction, staff has received and the airport development policy, staff will pursue the following 4 tasks over the next year and into the year 2026. So by the end of 2025, the calendar year, we anticipate identifying the best approach for hangar development. As I mentioned, we would be doing feasibility assessment and fiscal assessment, and come up with take this from a concept to more of a development proposal. And again, then it would roll into the next iteration, or if it were to move forward, environmental review and entitlement review would occur. We would continue our public safety complex feasibility assessment. So we'll continue to coordinate with our agency partners. As I mentioned, we hope to conclude that again at the end of this year and come up with a determination if there's enough demand or a need for a co-location facility here in Livermore and how that might work. We would start then thinking about how that would be planned and structured moving forward. Hoping to open the Aviation Innovation Center at the end of the year, but also likely could extend into early 2026 because of tenanting and tenant improvements and things may take a little time. And then finally, this one's a little further out. We will continue to explore advanced aviation mobility technologies, but it is emerging. We do need to do some research, talk to those new companies, understand what their needs are, and then understand how it fits into Livermore Airport's current system. So as these move, as I said, from concept to development project, we would take those to the Airport Commission, but we also will provide quarterly updates to the Airport Commission as we move through these analyses on the above tasks. Once we wrap all this up and we get a better sense of what we are going to do and move forward with, we'll do another assessment of how much these tasks in terms of land mass have consumed at the airport, and to see if there's any undeveloped land left. And if there is, then we can decide, the city can decide whether to move forward with forecasting to see if it makes sense to study future demand and move forward with a more comprehensive plan to facilitate non-aeronautical uses or mixed use at the airport. But that would occur after we get through this initial phase. And that concludes staff's presentation on the land use study and our proposed next steps. Staff's available for any questions you may have.
Any immediate questions before public comment? Well, I was going to say, if there's immediate questions, then we'll just open up for the public comment.
Yep.
Councilmember Brandon, Vice Mayor Brandon.
I know this is a plan, right? It's gonna drag out for years. We'll get this thing going. This is just direction for the staff to see what we're gonna do with hangars and where we're gonna put them. Are there gonna be considerations of putting solar panels on the hangars? That's one question. Innovation Center. I have ideas. So what does that mean? Innovation Center. I know Peace Handley back there, she has ideas too. So, and then the other question is, isn't the water board have something to do with probably the land that we're having there with considering PFAS? And once they come down with something, is it gonna delay us in what we do with any development on the land concerning the PFAS?
So the first one about solar panels on the roofs. So buildings at the airport also have to comply with the state building code. But there may be exceptions given glare and other things. I would let our airport manager speak more directly to that. In terms of the Innovation Center, still exploring and looking at what types of tenants to come in and what kind of facilities they would need, but it would require some building improvements at existing buildings on the airport campus, and Mr. Cardwell can probably provide more details. And then in terms of PFAS and Water Quality Board recommendations, again, any sort of development at the airport has to follow the standard process, which means compliance with, federal, state, and local regulations. So depending on what the determination of that board is, the city would have to comply with that.
This is Brandon Cardwell, your Director of Innovation and Economic Development. I would only add on the Innovation Center component that we have, I think, a strong analogous use today in the community in the Daybreak Labs incubator facility that is run by the iGate Innovation Hub, which the city's been a partner in since the inception of that organization. The Innovation Center at the airport would look to take advantage of the airport's unique characteristics as an airport to be an attractant for companies perhaps at different stages of development. Right now, Daybreak Labs is only focused on very, very early stage companies. I think there's opportunity for the airport to engage in a wider variety of companies through the Innovation Center.
Councilmember, Vice Mayor Branning.
Yeah, I'll have more comments later, but I just wanted to check. At this point in the process, is there any development actually being proposed right now?
No, we're still exploring and conducting feasibility analysis. The Innovation Center is a little further along than some of the others. There's a building been identified, and I believe there's some preliminary work investigation on what type of improvements, interior improvements would be needed.
Yeah, just to build on Mr. Ross's comments, what we are presenting tonight is a development strategy. There's the types of projects to pursue. There are no development proposals included tonight. Questions about environmental review or specific aspects of the projects or around acreage uses and things of that nature would come at a later phase when we have actual development proposals that have been evaluated consistent with site constraints and the city's typical entitlement or review process.
Thank you.
Do you have any question?
Can I just follow up on that question? Are we talking about just in terms of a time frame? Are we talking 10 years, 30 years, or is this sort of, we'll see where things go? Just because we've gotten several communications from the community about it, and I think people are feeling like there are not a lot of specifics, but we're in the very early stages. And so how far down the road are we looking at?
So we hope to have those specifics at the end of this calendar year in terms of hangar development and what the Innovation Center is going to look like. And even the public safety complex, we'll just have more information about where, how much acreage, how much square feet, how much costs and all those things, and then move into a more detailed development phase, and then it would go through an entitlement process.
Okay.
But we are in early stages. Sorry.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think it's maybe helpful to think about this in terms of the technical memo has told us what we can and what we cannot do, or what we can only do under certain conditions and with certain approvals from the FAA. So that's laid out the menu of opportunity for what we can pursue at the airport. The development strategy we're putting forward to you tonight is these are the 4 things we would like to pursue in the near term. As you mentioned, we are at an early stage of that. Hangars are by far the most mature of those concepts. We know how to build them. We know how to partner to build them. The questions that are still remain around hangars are mostly about approach and volume. So we have a wait list. Actually, we have several wait lists today. There's market demand for those. How much to build and how is part of the next phase of evaluation. The city has the ability to build hangars itself as part of a CIP project. It also can go out to bid and look for partners. There are pros and cons to doing either one of those approaches. And then I think there's this question of how much to build. We want to be able to address the demand that we have, which is considerable. It will likely take place, I think, in phases over years. We may have multiple phases of hangar development to make sure we're pacing with demand and not introducing too much risk of vacant hangars in the future. So I think even while hangars is the most mature of these concepts, the other three are very much in scoping phase, understanding what the needs are of all of the partners who are involved, what the capacity of the airport is to address that need, and the best approaches forward to actually achieving it.
Okay, so when you say that there are wait lists and there's considerable demand, what are we talking about? 20, 50? What's the wait list?
In terms of the number
The
of people
hangars.
on the wait list,
Yeah.
150,
Approximately.
146, actually.
I'll ask our airport manager, Benny Stuth, to come and give us the answers.
Thank you, Mayor Marchand, members of the council. This is Benny Stuth, the airport manager for Livermore Airport. As Mayor Marchand has said, there's 147 people on various hangar waiting lists, those very small T hangars to large executive box hangars. For the small and medium hangars, the average wait list time is about 8 years to get a hangar. For the larger box style hangars, the average life of a person on that waiting list is about 17 to 20 years to wait for one of those hangars.
So are these planes that currently are parked at the airport with no shelter, or are they at some other airport and will come here if they can get a hangar?
We have taken a look and audited those lists, and we've seen that probably close to half are current tenants at the airport that either have one or more aircraft that they would like to house there. Others are tenants of the airport that are businesses that would like to expand their business, such as aircraft maintenance and avionics. So a lot of those would choose to move into these hangars that we are proposing to potentially look into developing. But there would potentially be other people that would come in after that, but the goal would be to satisfy any type of hangar waiting list before reaching out further from there.
So that's a considerable wait list. Are we thinking we could accommodate that many new hangars?
So under the south side portion of the developable lands that you saw, one of the biggest parcels that's right next to the south hangar areas, that's roughly about 30 acres. And so if we were to build hangars to satisfy 100% of the demand, we would be looking at somewhere in the realm of half of that to maybe a little bit more than that. It really just kind of depends. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of a hangar wait list because you are reducing your risk profile when you're doing that. You don't want to build 100 hangars for 100 people and then suddenly have vacancies after the fact. So even when we are looking at that type of development, we would be looking at satisfying some of the demand there, but not 100% of that.
Okay, okay.
And some of the question around how much land would be absorbed will vary depending on the mix of hangar types that you build. They have different sizes, which that would be part of an evaluation as well. As what's the mix?
Yes, small and medium hangars generally tend to run from about 900 square feet to 1,100 square feet. The larger executive style hangars run from 1,700 to 3,000 square feet.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any public comment?
Yes, Mayor, we do. The first speaker is Donna Caban, followed by Greg Scott, followed by David Fiala.
Good evening. Thank you for hiring C&S. I hope the council will follow the technical study's most important recommendations. 1, revise the outdated airport master plan, which is over 40 years old. 2, verify if the outdated airport layout plan has been approved by the FAA. 3, development should only occur on 10 acres. Other concerns. The Water Board is requiring additional PFAS testing at LVK. If any of the 10 parcels need expensive PFAS remediation, the number of parcels for development could be further reduced. Would it be wise to pause planning until the Water Board issues its final clearance? Hangars. More hangars will increase airport traffic and congestion in a non-attainment air basin. LVK already has 180,000 takeoffs and landings each year. This is substantial. How much additional infrastructure would be needed for more hangars? How much money does the city generate from the taxes on fuel sales? What is the current balance of the Airport Enterprise Fund? Concerns about the proposed projects. The public safety complex aims to enhance emergency preparedness, but is the funding for this realistic? LARPD filed a claim against East Bay Parks for $8 million for deferred maintenance costs. Given these financial constraints, is it realistic that East Bay Parks will be able to invest and participate in a joint operations at LVK? What other helicopter companies beyond the safety complex would be allowed? Advanced air mobility and EV tolls. Are there any current EV toll proposals or commitments? If so, do these projects conform to Airport Resolution 2058, which require documented community demand? Please keep in mind, currently, no EV tolls have been certified by the FAA. Finally, does the community support air taxis for wealthy clients outside of Livermore seeking to avoid traffic on I-580? I respectfully ask the City Council and staff to consider these points. Let's work together for a genuinely inclusive process that informs, respects, and benefits the community. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Greg Scott, followed by David Fiala, followed by Shirley Lewandowski.
Greg Scott, yes, updating a 40-year-old airport master plan would be a priority. My concern is the allocation of resources. There's a lot of desperate people out there, and how are we dedicating resources here, and what socioeconomic demographic does it go to? We are going to reconsider soon resource allocation greatly. Our lives, whether we recognize it or not, have changed greatly in the last 2 weeks. On April 3rd and April 4th, the US stock markets lost $5.4 trillion in market capitalization. On the 6th, they lost trillions more. That bounced back on the 9th considerably, but that isn't the big news. A very interesting thing happened at the end of the trading day 11 days ago on April 4th. Usually in the markets, when the stocks, equities drop, especially significantly, that money goes into risk-adverse investments. Risk-adverse investments are considered bonds, especially treasury bonds. 10-year treasury is the bedrock of the global economy. At the end of the trading day on April 4th, you would have thought that trillions of dollars coming out of the stock equities would have gone into treasury bonds. It didn't. People dumped treasury bonds like crazy, and they also sold gold like crazy. That's inconsistent. Our world changed with that little activity. This is not a risk-averse investment anymore in treasury bonds. It will affect us all. We are going to reconsider resource management in the very near future. For example, the 10-year treasury is the basis of the loan rates. It's the basis of mortgages and all that. So resource allocation here and what we're doing is going to be critical in all these projects. Thank you.
The next speaker is David Fiala, followed by Shirley Lewandowski, followed by Mark Mullen.
Hello, my name is David Fiala, and I'm a 32-year Tri-Valley resident. Tonight, you are reviewing the airport land use analysis and development study by CNS companies. I'm here specifically to talk about the public's comments for improved communications and follow-up regarding airport concerns and safety. As the consultant's report stated, there needs to be stronger community outreach by the airport on an ongoing basis. Events need to be included which foster public interaction and interagency coordination with the Tri-Valley region. The airport staff's actions affect all of the Tri-Valley. The City of Livermore disbanded the local leadership advisory committee, which was an outlet for residents to voice questions and concerns about the airport and other local issues. There needs to be an established communication and follow-through process for Tri-Valley residents to voice concerns, ask questions, and receive follow-up about the airport. This currently does not occur. Many times concerns are voiced with no staff feedback and action. The consultant noted that noise management is a key concern. In the consultant's pie chart of what is important for the Livermore community over the next 20 years, they noted that noise, with 52 respondents, was the biggest slice of the pie when addressing this question. I recently went to an airport commission meeting to talk about this issue and the challenge it is to report noise concerns with the current system. On the Livermore Airport website, you must hunt for the information to report noise concerns, and then trying to use the software provided is very difficult. When I asked the Livermore Airport commissioners who had used the software, several said that they had not used it and could not accurately report on the ease of reporting the system. No action follow-up was taken regarding my concerns and ideas, such as putting the noise link on the front page of the website. Unfortunately, this is a typical response by the City of Livermore in regards to community airport concerns. There's no transparency and accountability of public engagement, which has led to distrust. The consultants noted the division within the community because of poor communication still influences current dynamics. My recommendation is for improved communications through detailed, searchable meeting minutes between staff, the Airport Commission, and the City Council. The minutes should also include substantive public input offered at the meetings. These minutes will comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act requirements, ensuring all interested parties can access the complete record of the proceedings. If there's no improved communication and no efforts to be transparent and accountable, then the division will worsen and future plans for the airport will be stymied by community action. Thank you.
The next speaker is Shirley Lewandowski, followed by Mark Mullen, followed by Carol Silva.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. I'm Shirley Lewandowski, and I'm a 37-year resident of Dublin. I am here because I care about what happens in the Tri-Valley. And just like I comment to the Dublin City Council regarding the importance of strategic direction and funding on any development projects in our city, I do so also tonight in regards to your airport land development. Due to external influences, the economy is currently more uncertain today. While arguments could be made that planning and preparedness efforts should occur during uncertain economic conditions, residents urge the City Council, Airport Commission, and staff to take an honest view of realistic economic conditions that underlie each of these generalized projects to ensure public funds are spent responsibly. Is there secured funding outside in place for these projects? Or is this study being used as an initial step to position the airport for future FAA funding, thereby allowing the City Council and Airport Commission to shape future development according to its priorities? Identifying the source of funds is critical, not only for assessing the feasibility of these projects, but also for ensuring the public resources and future commitments are planned and managed with transparency and accountability. Identifying the underlying funding source will help shape and inform stakeholder expectation as to what may be public information and what may not be accessible. It will help provide a clear understanding of the potential outcomes controlled by the city or potential outside party and the public's ability to influence those possible outcomes. Residents will thank you for your efforts for bona fide transparency and robust public engagement. It makes for reviving much needed public trust back into our government and elected officials and combat the divisiveness currently existing in our overall political environment. Thank you.
The next speaker is Mark Mullen, followed by Carol Silva, followed by Linda Milanese.
Good evening, Mayor Marchand,
council members, and city staff. My name is Mark Mullen, and I'm here to speak in strong support of adopting the recommendations of the recent airport land use study. This effort is about more than just aviation. It's about smart planning, long-term economic growth, enhanced public safety, and embracing innovation that benefits our entire community. First, expanding hangar capacity directly addresses a well-documented shortage, but more importantly, it supports our local economy. Each new hangar attracts aircraft owners and aircraft businesses, creating revenue through leases, fuel sales, local maintenance jobs. It keeps aviation dollars in our city instead of losing them to nearby airports. Second, building facilities for public safety aircraft is a critical investment. Whether responding to fires, medical emergencies, or law enforcement situations, having dedicated space improves response times and coordination, ultimately saving lives when seconds matter. Third, the proposed Aviation Innovation Center represents a powerful opportunity. It would serve as a regional hub for education, workforce development, and technology, fostering partnerships with schools, colleges, and the private sector. It's a place where students could find career paths and entrepreneurs could build the next generation of aerospace innovation. Finally, by preparing now for eVTOLs and advanced aviation mobility, we're showing leadership. This emerging technology will transform urban mobility. With thoughtful planning, we can make our city a pioneer in sustainable, efficient air transportation. These recommendations align with the core values of this city: economic resilience, public safety, sustainability, and forward-thinking leadership. I respectfully urge you to adopt the study's recommendations and help realize the full potential of our airport for the benefit of our entire community. Thank you for your time and your leadership.
The next speaker is Carol Silva, followed by Linda Milanese, followed by Ryan Haggerty.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. This agenda item number 7.1 is entitled Update on the Airport Land Use and Development Study, including next steps. The next step seems to me that Livermore City Council should pause LVK expansion plans until the Geosyntec final report is released. The PFAS final report might not be available until sometime in the fall of 2025. Yet in the next steps that were shown in the presentation, it seemed like most of the next steps were geared for 2025. And one of the questions I had pertained to the hangars and the sizes, and most of that was sort of answered tonight, but I think the airport staff could be a little bit more forthcoming based on knowing who is on the waiting list for the hangars and knowing the size and the quantity expected of the new hangars and what the existing hangars are quantity and size-wise. In figure 12 on page 20 of the Airport Land Use Analysis and Development Study, it shows a road through the floodplain to reach the proposed development on the south side of the airport runways. I was wondering, does the entire road go through the floodplain? Does it currently exist? Or does the entire road or part of the road need to be constructed? How many linear feet of the road would need new construction? Also in the near term, I'm going to skip that. I'm sorry. Does the airport staff currently have plans for further community outreach? How were the two open houses publicized? I would think that it would be better if it were in the local independent newspaper. There were only 91 attendees in the two open houses. At the March 19th Airport Commission meeting, 9 meeting participants raised important questions regarding the airport's future. Over 3 weeks later, most of the questions remain unanswered. And the frequently asked questions on the city website do not relate to the questions that were asked on March 19th. This lack of clarity undermines the public's trust. My motivation for speaking tonight is to safeguard the health of Tri-Valley residents and protect the environment. Thank you.
The next speaker is Linda Milanese, followed by Ryan Haggerty, followed by Pete Sandu.
Good evening. I want to echo the concerns from previous speakers about airport development. I also want to encourage you to take your time. You hired a consultant who made suggestions like the importance of updating the airport master plan and the airport layout plan before any development. Do you plan to wait until that happens? Do you plan to wait for the PFAS study by Geosyntex that won't be available until later this fall? That seems vital to any development. There's already talk about air taxis that Mayor Marchand has suggested could be used by companies who don't want their employees stuck in the I-580 commute parking lot. Really? More planes and helicopters in the Tri-Valley skies is not a popular concept with most people, especially considering the news lately about small plane crashes. And I don't think residents would take well to seeing the privileged few overhead while they're stuck in traffic below. Whenever there's a meeting about the airport, Mr. Sandu is the last speaker. He's the FBO and he sounds authoritative and dismissive about citizens' irrelevant and foolish questions. But I ask you to please take your time and consider carefully, especially listen to my friend Donna Caban, who does her homework. Her motivation is not to stop airport development, but her only motivation is to protect the environment and the health of Livermore residents. I'm with Donna. Are you?
The next speaker is Ryan Haggerty, followed by Pete Sandu.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, staff. My name is Ryan Haggerty, and I stand in support of this development project and the proposed next steps. As a third-generation contractor, an employer to nearly 100 various community members, and a father of 6 children, I'm a proponent and steward of the vocational workforce development and trades industry. Humans are builders. Building gives our lives great meaning. There's nobility in building things, people, and communities. This project provides great jobs, creates immense opportunities, brings infrastructure for our safety services here to Livermore, and creates a tremendous opportunity to train and develop our next generation's workforce in aeronautics through the Innovation Center. Thank you. Thank you.
The next speaker is Pete Sandu.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff, Adam, Brandon, and Benny, for the thorough and extensive work that they've done over the last few years, not just this project, but the development process and so on and so forth. What we have now is a plan that ensures that what we put at the airport is not just what just happens to fall in our lap. And we could have gotten stuck with aviation developments that would have been incompatible with the community. And now we've identified what our ideal scenario is. What are the projects that are compatible with the community, that support the community and enhance life in the community? There's some substantial deficiencies in what we have available as resources in public safety right now. CAL FIRE firefighting aircraft are far away, far further away from this spot than any other spot in the state of California. Ambulance service is scant. Our level 1 trauma center is in Castro Valley, and that, yes, that parking lot of 580 is a hazard to anybody that needs to get to that level 1 trauma center in a hurry. Helicopters and aircraft that we're attracting to Livermore by providing suitable facilities for them will solve some of those substantial deficiencies that we have in our community and provide that kind of level of safety and security for our citizens. These are things that enhance the standard of living in our community. The other hangars support and attract businesses that require air travel to support their businesses. There's no coincidence that California headquarters for Costco is next to an airport. There's no coincidence that Comcast headquarters is next to the airport. There's no coincidence that Gillig based right next to the Livermore Airport after moving from right near the Hayward Airport. So these are the things that also help the community. Whether you're a citizen that actively uses that aircraft, you're benefiting from that aircraft being here. There's some people that would just focus on the negative externalities. Living next to a hospital or a fire station has a lot of benefits, but there's negative externalities there every time those sirens go off. And attracting large employers to your community has lots of benefits, but that means that there's a lot of employees causing traffic and needing resources. All of these things that have substantial benefits come with some things that need to be balanced. And these are the projects that we've identified that are the most suitable and most compatible and most rewarding for our community. Thanks.
That concludes a public comment.
Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Questions or comments from the council? Councilmember Wong?
Actually, some of my remaining questions were answered in the comments. Yeah, I think I'll leave
Yeah,
it
we're
for
good.
now.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Come this way. Councilmember Barrientos.
City Councilman, I heard a problem with the hangars and who were getting the hangars, and some people, it could be rumors or not, that some people were given, like a person got 2 or 3 hangars, and they just changed the name from one John Doe to John whatever, but it was the same person using the hangars. So how are you going to disperse the hangars and who's going to get them? Hopefully they're going to be given out to local people or people in the area.
But I would ask Mr. Stuth if he has any further comments to make, but I would say that as part of the analysis here, we'll be looking at how many hangars and using the wait lists as the basis for dispersing the hangars, as you say. So I think we would look to obviously be fair and equitable and follow established practice in allowing people to sign up for new hangars. We have the wait list, they're long established. And some of that will depend on the process that we undertake, whether it's city-led or through a third party, I think, to the degree that we influence that. So I don't know, Mr. Stuth, if you have anything else to share.
A lot of actions that had taken place at the airport prior to the hangar wait list policy that was passed by this council about 2 years ago now. And that really resolved a lot of issues out at the airport with respect on how hangars were being given out to different individuals. Any new hangar developments at the airport would follow that policy to the line.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this before us. It's taken quite a while for us to get here. I believe it's been around 2 years since we had the development pause. I think it was just before actually my time on council. So I think it's 2.5 years. I'll say, this is a much needed thing. The we had to get here eventually. I don't think a permanent pause on development was a sustainable policy, but I'll turn it to staff to ask. Would a permanent pause on development at the airport be sustainable from the FAA's perspective?
Short answer is no. If a request for use of property was made, if a proposal was submitted to the airport, we are bound by
Ben?
FAA rules and guidelines to consider.
Can you move closer to the microphone?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, this is really, in my opinion, this is us taking control. We often have complaints from up here about losing control. And this is us defining what we want to build, how we want to build it, and how we'll, control that going forward. I had a couple of just, smaller questions or comments. First of all, I just wondered if staff could speak really briefly about Site 2. It's an odd one that is not being recommended for future development. It's the teardrop one, if you want to say why it's not.
It's adjacent to one of our arroyos, and I believe it may even have an easement over it held by Zone 7 for flood control and stormwater management.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to highlight that because of its location. It's very centrally located, but was recommended not for development. As far as communication goes, I know the city works really hard to do the best they can for communication. I do encourage you to continue in every way you can, making sure to reach out. As we look to go from, the plan into developments, please make sure, we continue notifications, we make it clear. And I believe when we do get to actually developments being proposed, all of those will go through the Airport Commission as the first, basically first stop in that process. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I recommend for citizens that are curious or really want to be engaged in what actually will be built, that the Airport Commission packets are where to look, where to really keep an eye on. Your input at the Airport Commission is going to be very meaningful going forward with what we get at the city. I do think the Airport Commission's recommendation, I appreciate you putting the FAQ up. I think that eVTOLs is overly narrow. So really, for me, one of the coolest things in this is the opportunities for us to really have a future focused airport. So, not just building hangars to meet demand, but the idea of an innovation center where we can really train, future generations of airport mechanics, pilots, people who are going to be inventing the technologies of the future. And then looking at companies that we can really get to come to our airport that'll, put another feather in Livermore's hat, that we've had, so many innovations in the city. We've done so much for the future of the entire planet. Being a leader in the future on aviation would be just super cool. So I want us to focus on, I don't want us to get so narrow with eVTOLs that we end up missing what the actual technologies of the future are. So the other parts of the public safety complex, I just want to put in that there are some serious trade-offs with a public safety complex. There's real benefits to having one at our airport, but there's also going to be some disadvantages to having one there, such as increased noise. I think it's very important for that we really, put every effort into getting community feedback and laying out the case so that our residents can come back with feedback informed about what are the benefits and drawbacks of a public safety complex. Personally, I think, on the surface, I think it sounds like a great idea, but even I need some education on, what is that going to look like? How many takeoffs and landings are we looking at? What kind of noise levels are we looking at? What is the effect of having a facility like that going to be, so that I can make an informed choice, but I think our residents deserve the information also so they can give informed feedback. And the last thing is a request as we look forward to development agreements with the different hangars. We get a lot of complaints about noise. I think that it's, really important that we do everything we can to respect those complaints, to try to limit the noise as best as we can. I've had conversations with pilots that have mentioned possible ideas to help improve noise mitigations at the airport. I know that you've had plenty of conversations around that. But one novel approach that I'd like our legal team to look into is depending on how we build the hangars, I think there'll be different answers for this. But depending on how we build the hangars, can we put in any sort of penalties or restrictions for the curfew into the lease on the hangars, as opposed to directly trying to penalize takeoffs and landings? And so I think if we can look into, is it possible for us to have language in the leases that would support maintaining our proposed curfew? I think those are basically my comments. I just want to say I really appreciate, staff's effort on this. This took years to get here. This is huge, and this will, affect Livermore for the foreseeable future. And so I want to make sure we get it right. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So one of the other commissions that I sit on is the Airport Land Use Commission for Alameda County. And at our last meeting on the agenda was the heliport for Children's Hospital. And that is, those are very important things to have. And if you have an eVTOL, if you've got a vertical takeoff and landing capability, if you have a craft like that, that is quiet, what a great thing to have developed here in the Tri-Valley so that you can get to where you need to be. So having that emergency complex here, I think, is extraordinarily valuable because we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about children's lives. And these are things that we can all get behind because when you need an ambulance, you need it and you need to get to the hospital quickly. So I find this very exciting, these opportunities that we have here. We've always already recognized that the airport is a tremendous asset. This was a staging area during the 2020 fires, during the fires up in Napa, during the earthquake. This was a staging area for emergency response. And the airport continues to be a tremendous asset, not just for Livermore, but for the entire region. We had a couple speakers talk about allocation of resources. Is this the best use of funds for an allocation of resources? Yes, because this is an enterprise fund. So the money that is raised by the airport goes into the airport. The people that benefit from the use of the airport are paying for that benefit. So we can't take the money that is part of that enterprise and move it into another fund. We can't use that money for somebody else because the money that comes from the airport goes to operate the airport. So that's the definition of an enterprise fund. I thought it was interesting. Somebody said, well, you're going to make all the people upset because they're going to be riding outside of the gridlock traffic that we're all in because they're going to take an eVTOL to wherever they need to be. Can you imagine what people would have thought if 20 years ago you said that everybody in this room would have their own personal chauffeur? Nobody can afford a personal chauffeur. How about Uber and Lyft? Those are disruptive technologies that we all benefit from. And this is what happens when you have these disruptive technologies that, yes, having a personal chauffeur was at one time exorbitantly expensive. And now, because of new technologies, anybody can afford it. And this is what we're looking for. These are the technologies that are going to make an incredible difference. A lot of people talked about, well, let's just delay this. We'll keep delaying it. You know, this is not a strategy to delay. We will continue to plan while everybody else is doing this stuff. The PFAS, most likely, if in fact the PFAS did originate from the airport. And I believe the last study I saw from the regional board was that it was inconclusive. But if it did come, it's on the north side of the airport. And this development that we're talking about is on the south side of the airport. And if you do set in an extraction well, you're going to be extracting from the north side while you can develop the south side. We're not talking about develop. We're talking about setting up a process on the best way to develop so that we achieve, as Mr. Sandhu pointed out, the types of developments there that we want, not anything that's thrust upon us. So one of my favorite comments was talking this suddenly there's all this concern about PFAS, the polyfluoroalkyl sulfonates that were actually required to be in the firefighting suppression foams, and that's why they were stored at the airport. But the same people that are saying that we should stop all this process until we get an answer on the PFAS are the same people that when we were dealing with lead and hydrocarbon contamination on a future park site, those representatives from the Sierra Club said we should leave the contamination behind. That's what they said, leave the contamination behind. Sorry, that's exactly what you said. That's what the ads in the Independent said. So yes, you did. So we are going to be removing the PFAS contamination once it's identified, but I find it inconsistent to say that we should stop everything now because the final determination hasn't been made on PFAS, but yet their recommendation was to leave the contamination behind. So we will continue to move ahead with this planning process. We're not taking action tonight. We're setting up a series of next steps on how to engage the public. And that's what we'll continue to do. We got some great comments on how we can better communicate with the public, and I think we'll continue to do that as well. But I appreciate the time and effort that staff went through on this. And do you need further direction from the council, or is this sufficient? The city manager is saying, okay, enough. Okay, well, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate the tremendous effort, appreciate the hundreds of people that commented on this, and that we will continue to take public comment, and we will continue to take the best steps for the region and for the community. So thank you very much. Okay, moving on to committee reports and matters initiated. Councilmember Barrientos, you were busy. Yeah. Anything that you want to initiate? Any comments that you want to highlight?
In our area, you look on next door, which I hate looking at. And anyway, the issue came up about the traffic from the Shiva temple. And I drove by when I saw it, and I thought, oh, it's going on right now, but it wasn't. So I said, what the heck, I'll walk in. And once they found out who I was, they set up a meeting with the manager, his name is Krishna, and he is concerned about the traffic because they are frustrated because they come from all over. They come from Southern California. And he goes, it's hard to tell them, and he goes, they have parking for 800 cars, which I didn't know that. I know they had one side, and on the other side of the street, they have a bigger parking lot. And they try to mitigate the problem with hiring police officers to control the traffic, because it's still tough because it's not like we're used to. Methodist or Christian is a 1 hour or 2 hour service. It's an all day long thing when it happens. So they never know when people are going to come in. So I said, he's willing to work with any staff, and I'm sure you are already working with them. And I suggested maybe we can have shuttle system set up after a certain amount of people get that you have to go park at Las Positas and shuttle them over. Whatever works the best for them. But I think it's good. I got to tour the temple, and the people were really nice. I met the president, and they're all concerned and they want to work something out that benefits them and helps them out and doesn't trample on the community that where they reside in. They've been there for a long time. I didn't know how long they've been there, but they've been there for a while.
Since
So-
the mid-80s.
What?
Since the mid-80s.
Yeah. And it's a big site. They're willing to show you around. All you gotta do is take your shoes off.
Councilmember Wong.
I just want to highlight a couple of things. A couple weeks ago, Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance held a panel discussion on how our social service agencies are serving our immigrant populations. It's very challenging right now, as you can imagine, and it was a very sobering but important conversation. And LAVTA, which is the Wheels Bus agency, there is a lot going on. We're doing strategic planning, looking at the budget, the legislative updates continuously come. There's a lot changing. But at our last board meeting, we recognized Wheels driver Hector Garcia for 33 years of perfect attendance and a perfect driving record.
Wow.
It's really amazing. And then lastly, this may be relevant to only me on this dais, but I know to many others in the community. This Saturday at 2 p.m. at Civic Center Public Library, there's going to be a screening of the M Factor. It's a great panel about menopause, and there will be ASL interpretation. So hope to see some people out there.
All right, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's been a busy couple of weeks for me. Actually, a lot of what I've been doing included working with Cal Cities, different programs with them. And I just want to make sure that everyone is aware, we're going through another package of bills. There's a lot coming that's going to change. It actually looks like right now there's a lot of kind of common sense sane bills going through that will really help streamline the process with HCD on the housing elements to give us a little bit more fair notice to not end up in a situation has happened to us in many other cities where we felt kind of rug pulled by them. Aside from that, one of the big things that we're really looking at is trying to make sure that, we can work with the design guidelines that we have and make it clearer and cleaner and easier for developers to be able to understand the process. It's been shifting very rapidly. And one of the items we voted to support was a pause on the state updating building codes, which would also affect us updating our building codes for the next 6 years. And so this would leave us, if this passes, it would ultimately put us in a situation where the hopes is there would be some stability to allow developers to really plan ahead and be able to work appropriately. So while that's advancing through, if there are any pressing changes, I recommend we look at those immediately. But I believe we're in good shape generally on those. Aside from that, a lot of fun things have been happening recently. There's a lot going on around town, in town. Street Fest is coming up, so if you haven't volunteered, I recommend you do. And it's a wonderful, awesome event that Livermore Downtown Inc. puts on every year. And I just wanted to bring back the matters initiated from earlier. Just if we can get an update on the fire abatement programs going on throughout the city, not just the weed abatement. Either a public update or at least a council, and then potentially something, on the website so people can see. I'll leave staff the details on how to best notify people, but some update for us as well as for the public to just know what's going on regionally and some of the changes that are going on with fire abatement. I've been briefed on several. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but I know that the rules around fire abatement in, urban and suburban areas are changing. So, sound good? All right.
Very
That's
good.
it then. Thank you.
Well, thank you. A lot of stuff going on. It was interesting, the conversation we had tonight about PFAS. I was at the ribbon cutting for Zone 7 is opening their second PFAS treatment system. It's right behind the outlets. But it's a 10 MGD plant, and great thing about it was they used grants to pay for it. So this is going to be it's cutting edge technology, and it's protecting the public health of everybody here in the Tri-Valley. I was at the Science Fair Odyssey. It was from Livermore Joint Unified School District, Zone 7, and the city of Livermore. And I was able to present the water awards. There's a lot of really smart kids out there that are doing amazing work. The Quest Science Center had their Science and Innovation Fair at the fairgrounds. And what was somewhat troubling was sort of the last minute, NASA, who was going to be participating, contacted them and said that they were not going to be coming. So I don't know if it was the fact that one of the focuses for the Quest Science Center is climate change and validating that, whether it's the inclusion and equity in their mission statement. But it was troubling that NASA decided not to show up. But other than that, it was a great program. Livermore was out there, and Zone 7 was out there, and a lot of other folks, a lot of great demonstrations. It was a great program. Matter initiated. I've been up here for over a decade, so a lot of the stuff I just take for granted. But this is a very turbulent time, and I think maybe it would be good just kind of get centered and to go over our norms and values and rules of procedure and how do we conduct business at the dais. We do have 2 new council members. We've got veterans with 2 years experience. I got over 30 years of experience. So as I said, I take a lot of this stuff for granted, but I think maybe it'd be a good idea to set up a workshop or some sort of mechanism where we can all just go over the norms and values and how we conduct the business of the city. So run that past staff, and however you think would be the best way to do that, let's go ahead and do that as well. With that, to close, I would like to honor a dear friend, someone who served this community for decades. He was born at St. Paul's Hospital and here in Livermore, and he was the Livermore High School class of 1965. His family ranched this area, the Livermore area, before there was a Livermore. The lands that they originally ranched were, they started in 1867. He was an active member of the California Cattlemen's Association. He was the president of the California Rangeland Trust, talking about Darrell Sweet, who served Alameda County. He was on the Alameda County Rangelands Trust. He was the California Cattlemen's Association. He was recognized in 2013 as Livestock Man of the Year. He lived the life of the founders of our community, William Mendenhall and Robert Livermore. So with that, I will adjourn in honor and memory of Darrell Sweet. Thank you very much. Next meeting, April 25th, April 21st.